Alrighty, hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's episode we are back at work on the 66 Mustang chassis swap. We're going to be working on attaching the body the rest of the way to the new chassis and working on the fender wells, trying to get them boxed in. That probably there. So, stay tuned, that's what's in today's episode. Let's get to it. that, we are done mocking up the chassis. So now we're going to start working on the wheel wells. It's not pretty, it's not perfect, but it'll get us by. Okay, a little change of plans. I'm going to be working on the cowl instead. Basically, what we're trying to do here, you can see under here, there is a piece of metal here that I actually cut out of the old fender. Because like I said, I'm trying to do this as budget friendly as possible. So we cut that piece of sheet metal and we bent it a little bit and slid it up underneath here. So you can see it in there. So that way the rain tray still drips down into here like it's supposed to. But I need to figure out a way to attach that to there now that we have already put the car on top, of course. So my idea, and this isn't going to quite look OEM, but this whole car is not going to look OEM, so it doesn't really matter. But my idea is to drill holes in the peaks of these and then mark where it hits on that sheet metal, pull that back out, drill holes in that, and then rivet it. I don't know for sure that it's going to work. We're going to do something with this, though, because if I can pull it up, and then we'll find a way to secure the bottom down, which will be easier because I at least can kind of half reach that. So we'll figure out some way to then secure the bottom and get it all snug down where it's sheet metal. It's pretty thin. It should be pretty pliable. And if I can get it pinned up and pinned down, then that should separate it completely from the front part here, which we don't want to interfere with because we still want our defrost to work. I have to figure out a way to clean up this line a little bit so it doesn't look funny, but the defrost is tucked way up in there and I'd still like it to work. So that's about the only way I can see. We are going to have to weld plugs in on the windshield wipers. I'm not sure how we're going to make the wipers work yet with the linkage where it's at down in here. We're still working on that, but I want to do this first because this is a big step to getting the car sealed up. And so we're going to detour slightly from doing the wheel wells to this because it's been bugging me and I want to get it done. So spot for you guys. I do apologize if you overheat and shut off at some point. It is sunny out today. Should give you guys a decent view. We're going to start by drilling the holes in the cowl itself. Like I said, we're going to aim for these. We're just going to do the ones in the center for the moment. I do have to take it to the outside somewhere, but I'm hoping I can probably do that actually just to this outside part here. Getting this gap in the middle pinned up will be the worst part. But we'll just see how it goes. We're trying things as we go here. We'll probably do on the outside edges first, but while just figuring out if this works, I'm just going to do the inside ones. Now we need to figure out a way to pull the cowl up. I had this before, one of these. Rag so we don't hurt the dash. Slide in here. I don't think we're gonna have to pull it out. might actually work better than I think it's going to. And good stuff. I don't think that's gonna work. Those aren't long enough to grab it. Drilled some unnecessary holes in the car. Maybe we can do something with that later. Hey! My hand's stuck in the cowl. There we go. Whew. Try and repeat that. A few more times. Not bad. We're going to want to mark how far down we are, though, on the cowl, so we keep those consistent. Finger. Whew. Ow. Okay, I'll have to go doctor my finger. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. You're still on. That's good. Alrighty, welcome back. We are working on the fenders. So these are the old fenders off of the 66 right here, and we are going to try and modify them to fit in there. So we're gonna have to trim them down quite a bit, and granted they don't need to be quite this deep. I think we're going to cut the lip off. Should be fairly easy, actually. We're going to cut this lip off right here. That'll narrow the fender a little bit. And then we're just going to figure out how far up we need to cut so that we can try and weld these back in. Like I said, we're trying to do this as budget-friendly as possible, so we're not doing a whole lot of parts. We're not buying a lot of parts. We're not trying to use what we have. Let's take some measurements, and we'll get to cutting. So it's not as perfect as I'd like it to be, obviously. And we could have left some and cut some, but So here's what we're looking at. It's pretty good from the front here. Look at that. Took a little persuasion to get it to fit in there, but did get it in there. Not bad. If you look up in here, got a little gap to fill there, but top's pretty good. And then you get over to this side, and we got a little hole. Wait a second. There, can you see that? Little hole there to fix. So, not terrible, all things considered. Definitely think it's passable. That's good enough. I also painted that flat black just to try and help it out a little bit. I was just bored and looking for something to do. we've been doing a lot of welding, priming, building. I want to do something that looks like we're making progress, and since I'm not going to paint the car on the first go around here, I'm going to put the corners on, taillights in, rear valence on, and the rear bumper. See if I can find this, put the gas cap back in, and try and get the rear of this car assembled. So I think that'd be pretty cool for looks and show some actual progress instead of just a bunch of structural work. So I'm gonna do that. Want to modify these housings to fit the new style bulbs. Put that back on. My idea is this housing big enough. We're going to knock this out, and then we're going to drill a hole that is this size and put the bulb in. And I want to drill 3 of them. I think this should all fit together. I don't think there's going to be heat issue. We're going to do this one first, just so that way it's easier. And the reverse lights we'll have to figure out later, because those should go down in the rear valence, but worst part is I don't think I have a hole saw. We'll put this in the vise. Yeah, if we could notch it. That one's just a little big. Go quite that big on the other ones, just go 1 1/8 inches. should work. Now we'll get some electrical tape and we'll just go up to the 1 1/8, not the like we did. What is that? Yeah, it's 1 1/8, so 1 inch was a little tight. This is definitely a little big, so we can actually put the bulb fits in now. And I could glue them in because, I mean, I can change the bulbs from the outside. I can just take the lenses off. I might silicone them in. Yeah, that. I think for now we're just going to do the single bulbs because I don't want to, since these are a completely different type of light bulb, I don't know if they're going to be too hot for these lenses, especially with 3 of them in there, so we'll probably just leave these free. We'll tape them up and put them in a, leave them just inside the car, you know. Just run the single for the moment. We do want to do the sequential upgrade eventually, so but we will need all of these blank. I don't think that's an issue. Test that. Yeah, not bad. Let's do the other one. Exactly what I was going for, but it works. Be smart this time to take this over to the vise ahead of time. go ahead and cut this off because we don't need anything but the lip. Still need more screws for that and more screws for that, so. Oh. Boop. Starting to look like a car. Might go see if I can find some more screws. Got some screws. That's not bad. I think this is what this one's for. Looks like that's what that one's for. I'm saying this was supposed to be that, and it's broken. So that's where it should be. Don't want it to fall off. now I don't have the tether on, so I don't want it to fall off. Starting to look more like a car. Okay, so it needs this. I'll go ahead and grab my wiring stuff and we'll go ahead and put this connector back on. Oh, we do have a bad filament. Okay. So we'll have to get a new bulb for that. Hey, we have lights. So the last thing I want to try and do, your battery's getting low. But the last thing I'd like to do is try to get the rear bumper mounted. So. Alrighty. That should do it for this episode. We got the taillights in and working. We got the bumper on. We got the valence on. Trunk is on. Gas cap's on, even though it's not functional, of course, because we're going to go out the side. But it is starting to look a little more like a car, at least from the rear. You go up the side, and we made a little backwards progress because we took the doors back off. But I am pretty happy with that progress for today. See if I have enough camera battery to get the lights fired up real quick. Don't die on me, please.